So the first thing I wanted to do is just go through the course prerequisites. This is kind of the boring stuff that you can probably skip if you already know what you're doing, but I wanted to just quickly go through it just in case. The first thing, of course, you're going to need is some code editor. I'm going to be using VS Code, and that's what I would recommend if you're not sure what to use. You can use your operating system of choice and install it via this URL. I've already done that, so I'm going to skip that. The next thing I would do is create a new GitHub repository. This is optional. You technically don't need it, but it's a good way to save your code and have the history and also show it off to other people when you're done with it. And if you choose to continue this project beyond this course, it'll be good to have it in a repo. I'm going to name this the YouTube clone because that's exactly what we are building. And I'm not going to provide a description. In my case, I'm going to make this private. You can make it public if you'd like. And I'm also going to have an empty README file. So I'm going to check this box and then I'm going to go ahead and create the repo. Now I've gone ahead and opened VS Code. And now I'm going to go ahead and open a terminal. You can do that via the view option here and then just click on terminal here, or you can even just go on terminal and then click new terminal. But you can see that the key shortcut in this case is control backtick. So I'm going to do it via that. Now I'm in my home directory within Windows subsystem for Linux, and I'm using Ubuntu. So what we want to do is clone the repo that we just created. You can do that via git clone, assuming you have the git CLI tool installed. And you can go back to GitHub and grab the URL just like this. So here I'm going to copy and paste that. And then we're going to go ahead and clone the repo. We will pass in our credentials. For your password, you're going to need to generate a token. I'll quickly show you how to do that. Going back to GitHub, you can click on your profile here and then click on settings down here. You're going to want to scroll all the way down here to developer settings and then click on personal access tokens. You can use either the fine-grained or the classic. I'm going to do the classic just because it's easier and this is like a personal project. We don't care too much about security. Then I'm going to go here and click on generate new token. And again, clicking the classic. I'm going to set the expiration to no expiration, even though they recommend against doing that because again, we don't care too much and we can always revoke this token if we really want to. I'm going to quickly type YouTube clone and all we need to do is give this repo permissions. If your repo is public, you probably only need to give it the public repo permission. And after generating the token, we're going to copy it and come back here. And now I'm going to paste the token and you can't tell I pasted it because of course that would be insecure, but I did. And now I'm going to press enter and it should successfully clone the repo just like it did. So now we're going to CD into that repo. It should be called YouTube clone because that's what the repo is called. Now we have CD'd into it. We're going to ls. We see there's an empty README file. And now we're going to open that repo using the code command in a new VS Code window. So code dot, there we go. And I'm going to go ahead and say I trust the authors. So this is the repo that we're going to be writing all of our code within. Now we're going to be using Node.js throughout this project. You can install it via an installer on the Node.js download page, or you can use a package manager via this URL here. So depending on which operating system you're using, you're going to want to follow the relevant instructions, whether you're using Windows or Mac OS or Debian, Ubuntu like I am. Now I'm doing this on Windows, and if you're also on Windows, I recommend installing Windows Subsystem for Linux and actually cloning the repo within that subsystem and doing all of your development within that, because we're also going to be using Docker, and Docker is a lot easier to use either in Linux or Mac OS. So if you're using Mac OS, you're probably fine. I tested the code out on Mac OS as well, and it does work. But if you're on Windows, I would recommend setting up Windows Subsystem for Linux. And that also brings us to Docker. Like I said, we're going to be using Docker, so I recommend also installing that. You can obviously choose your operating system of choice and get it all set up. So those are the main prerequisites. In the next video, we're going to start actually writing some code and getting into the interesting stuff. So I'll see you then.